Hello, everyone. My name is Atsuko Ichikawa, one of the EducationUSA advisors in Tokyo. Thank you very much for attending our webinar. Today's topic is the most important part of the college application. Before introducing the speakers for today, let me briefly introduce EducationUSA. So EducationUSA is a U.S. Department of State network of over 400 advising centers in more than 170 countries and territories. The network promotes U.S. higher education to students worldwide by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about opportunity to study at accredited post-secondary institutions in the United States. In Japan, we have 6 EducationUSA centers at the U.S. Embassy and Consulates. EducationUSA Tokyo is run by U.S. Embassy and Fulbright Japan. So if you go to EducationUSA Japan website, which includes FAQs about financial aid and scholarship information. So please visit our website for more information. And so upcoming events, on September 15th, we will have an English test and scholarship for undergraduate students information session. And on September 23rd, we will have EducationUSA for college fair. So please check our website for more information. Okay, so now let me introduce 2 speakers for today. Ms. Anna White from Hamilton College and Ms. Amanda Gerhardt, I hope I pronounced it right, from University of Richmond. So Anna and Amanda, please start your presentation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning to learn more about the essential parts of the application when considering applying to U.S. colleges and universities. Again, my name is Amanda Gerhardt, and I am the University of Richmond representative, and I am joined by my fantastic colleague, Anna Wise, from Hamilton College in New York. And while we will have an opportunity to share a bit more about our individual institutions at the end of the presentation, we're really excited to give you, again, kind of a high-level overview. And now we recognize that our 2 institutions are representing sort of a small population of universities throughout the United States that are known as liberal arts and sciences colleges. And so recognizing that we are presenting this information through the lens of our type of institutions, we want to first share with you some information about what is a liberal arts and sciences college. So that is going to be how we begin our session. So to get things started off, what is a College of Liberal Arts and Sciences? So in studying within a liberal arts environment, you are going to have the opportunity to study what we call both breadth as well as depth of learning. So while you will graduate with a degree in a particular major or maybe a couple of majors, we are going to encourage you to explore different subject areas outside of your major to really gain a breadth of knowledge. We want you to take a number of different types of classes to build those soft skills that are so essential to gaining employment after graduation, and also begin to see how you can draw connections between lots of different disciplines and subject areas throughout your 4 years of education. We are undergraduate specialists. So colleges of liberal arts and sciences typically have very few, if any, graduate students on our campus. We are really, really focused on the undergraduate bachelor-seeking experience. So all of our research opportunities, all of our faculty attention, the mentorship, and all of the opportunities are designed for undergraduate students seeking their bachelor's. We are providing those students with great advisement and mentorship as well as education. We're also highly residential. So liberal arts and sciences colleges typically have students living on campus most of their 4 years. Many of our students also, our institutions, require residential components, at least at some period of time, in order to build that sense of community. And lastly, that brings us to this intentionally small communities. So most liberal arts and sciences colleges are going to be some of the smaller schools that you might consider applying to within the United States. At the University of Richmond, we have 3,200 students. We're actually a big liberal arts and sciences college compared to many of our peers, which have only a couple of thousand students. As you know, with the great range of universities in the United States, some universities are as big as tens and tens of thousands of students. So we're building these small communities where you can get to know your peers really well. We're designing small classroom environments so you can really be engaged in the classroom rather than being lectured at. You have a voice in the classroom environment. So all of these things really are unique to the liberal arts and sciences experience. It's something that we do very well within the United States. And again, just wanting to give you this context as we present upon the parts of the application that are really important for us, given this holistic approach to the application.
Thank you. So bit of a spoiler alert in that situation. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the holistic application approach. Now, while Amanda did a great job talking about the fact that both of us are, of course, from liberal arts and sciences colleges in the US, Hamilton is a similar college in that way towards Richmond. Holistic review is a type of admission review that is utilized not only by liberal arts and sciences colleges, but by the vast majority of colleges and universities across the United States. But when we say we utilize holistic review, we don't always explain or take the time to explain what this means in reality. Now, when we think of applying to colleges and universities, in most places around the world, the process of applying to a university could almost be thought about as a mathematical formula, right? You may sit for a very competitive exam, and your admission or not admission to a university or college tends to be very focused purely on your academic achievement and academic merit. If you score very well in specific subjects, you can say, okay, now I know exactly which universities I have options to enroll because I've scored the qualifying result. And so that really kind of comes out as a formula. If you meet the expectations for admissions, you are admitted. Now, the place where that is quite different is when you apply to the United States, because admissions to United States universities and colleges is not really like a mathematical formula. We use what's called holistic review. Holistic sounds a little bit like we're saying whole, and that's technically what we're trying to do. This means that admission to a college or university is usually not based just on meeting a specific academic base or standard. Instead, we consider multiple aspects to your application review. We are thinking about your academic transcripts. We're also thinking about your recommendations. What do your teachers or your counselors, people who know you in an academic classroom, what do they want us to know about you as a potential member of our community? What do you want to share with us about what type of a student or community member you might be? And one of the options that you have to do that is through an essay, through your writing, potentially. And we're going to talk more about writing specifically in just a little bit. But there are multiple aspects to who you would be on our campus, both as a member of our classroom, but also as a member of our community. Remembering that for liberal arts colleges, this is even more so. But for colleges and universities in the US, we are striving to ensure that we have strong communities in our classrooms, but also strong communities on our campuses, because the world we live in is not made up of people who all act and think the same way that we do. Instead, it's made up of people from all different backgrounds, all different countries, all different religions and socioeconomic environments. So we strive to make sure that we have students from different backgrounds on our campus studying and living and learning with each other, because it's through these differences that we're able to grow as individuals, as academics, but also as human beings who are going to then graduate and be able to live in a complex and ever-changing world. Now, this idea of holistic review that's not based on just a mathematical formula or just admissions based on hitting a specific examination score tells you that it is also necessarily a very human process, which means that admission officers, such as Amanda and myself, we are involved in the application review process. And because we are able to consider multiple aspects to each application process, we are also able to take into consideration things like context. Context can mean a lot of different things, but what we usually mean is not every student has had access to the exact same opportunities. Whether it's the same academic structure, of course, a lot of students who are applying from Japan are going to come from a national curriculum structure where they may not necessarily have had a lot of options for changing their curriculums or taking more advanced coursework or less advanced coursework or making choices. Whereas in other countries, there may be students who have access to more control over their schedule. Or different examples of context might be some students who are involved in very formalized after-school activities, whether it's athletics, whether it's theater or music, versus some students who say, I don't have access to those types of resources, but instead I have to spend my time helping to take care of my grandparents who live with my family. These are different experiences that different students have. And we sometimes call this context, which means where you come from, which opportunities you have can impact what kind of application you can submit. And we can really consider all of these opportunities as we consider whether we can offer you admission and a spot at our college or university. This also allows us to acknowledge the fact that you are more than just a person who takes exams, right? Every human being has lived experiences, and these are important to who we are. They're going to be important for us, getting to know your application, but they're also important because you will bring your lived experiences with you to our communities. And this means how you're able to thrive in our environment will be impacted also by your life story and making sure that you are a great fit for our campus community when we bring you to our campus. So this allows us to consider multiple aspects of your application. Now, it also does mean that there is not a minimum academic score that every student needs to meet. So no cutoffs in this type of situation. Instead, we consider multiple aspects to your application. And how do we do that? We do that by considering kind of two major aspects to every student who applies to our college. So both Amanda and I represent colleges that are called highly selective institutions. And really what that means is that more students would like to study in our colleges than we have capacity. It's honestly the hardest part of our job. It's also the most humbling part of our job, is the fact that there are more students who could be successful and would like to study at either Richmond or at Hamilton than we have precious spaces in our campus community. So we have to make very difficult choices every year when we decide who we can invite to our community. And we use holistic review to decide who we are able to admit. And we're always thinking about two major aspects for every student who's admitted to our colleges or universities. Those aspects are academics, but also personal qualities and what type of a community member would you be. So this is important because every student who will be admitted to our college or university will have demonstrated that they have the skills and opportunities to be successful. They may demonstrate this through different ways, depending on if they're in a national curriculum or an international curriculum, whether they took a TOEFL score or a Duolingo score. They may demonstrate this in different ways, but they will all show that they're able to be academically successful. Some of the aspects that we will ask students to show Are the academic mark sheets or tests or transcripts really whichever secondary school curriculum you have graduated from? We will be very happy to consider your secondary curriculum and to see, have you been successful when you were in high school, and do we have confidence based on your academic record that given the support systems that we have in place, that you can continue to be successful at our college or university. Now, one aspect that we will sometimes consider as part of this academic verification is testing. Sometimes you hear about the SAT or the ACT test. Now, most of our colleges and universities in the US, the one that Amanda represents and that I represent included, are both what we call test optional. This means that an SAT or an ACT is not a requirement for admission. Some students may choose to submit it, some students may not, but it is not a requirement. But both of our colleges will require a test of English proficiency in order to be sure that you have the skills to be able to be successful in our academic environment. I like to say English testing, this doesn't tell us anything about your intelligence or anything like that. It's just a skill that you need to be at a certain level in order to perform to your own academic ability. But as we shared, we could fill our campus multiple times with students who can do the academic work. So the second aspect that we are always equally interested in is personal qualities and community fit. Now, we are trying to make sure we have people from all different backgrounds and perspectives on our campus community, because that is how we grow from each other and prepare for a very diverse and ever-changing world. So we want to know, if we brought you to our campus community, what type of a campus community member would you be? Are you going to be the type of student who starts, 6 different clubs while you're here and is always active in these types of student organizations? Or are you going to be the type of student who says, I'm not going to start 6 clubs, but I'm going to be a person who, 3 months in when it's cold and we're all busy and we're all doing the exams, I'm going to keep things going. I'm the type of student who is a glue in the community and I bring people together. All these types of perspectives are important, and we want to make sure that we have balance throughout our community as well, so that we have a cohesive 4 years during your time in the US. And this is why we're going to look at things like, what do your teachers want us to know from your letters of recommendation? What types of extracurricular activities do you have? Or more really, like, where do you spend your time when you're not in a classroom environment? And again, this could be things like music. This could also be things like a job that you may work to help support your family, or helping to care for younger siblings or elderly relatives. But this tells us about your values. We are also going to look for things like your personal statements and some written essays from you. This helps us know something that you wish to share with us, that helps us get to know a little bit about your personality and helps us envision what type of a student you might be on our campus. And these are some of the questions at the base here that we're trying to learn from you from these aspects. Why do you think this might be a great fit college university for you? What type of a community member would you be? And also, importantly, have you taken the time to be thoughtful and conscious about why this college or that college is the best fit for you? And one of the ways to do that is through writing. I think Amanda's going to take this one.
Yes, thank you, Anna. Having trouble finding the buttons. So yes, as Anna mentioned, giving us a really great foundation on all the ways in which we get to know you. And I know that the role of the essay is one that we get many, many questions about. It's an area of the application that I think causes a lot of stress, a lot of undue stress sometimes, because I like to remind students that the essay is the single part of the application that you as a student have complete control over. And rather than seeing that as something really scary and intimidating, I hope you embrace the essay as something that's really empowering, and it's a great opportunity to show who you are. So what does the role of the essay play for us in the admission office? And you got to hear again a really great understanding and overview of what the essay does, but it helps us to really get a big picture idea of the student that you are, the student that you'll be on our campus, and the student that you might grow to become through your 4 years. So we're looking to see is, what is the thread of this applicant? Can we get a sense of truly who they are and how you might transition to our campus community? It's obviously very personal, so it's the personal essay, and it gives us a sense of you as an individual. This is a very human process applying to colleges, particularly those that have this holistic review process where you're not having to meet a particular minimum in order to just get automatically admitted. Again, we have to be much more kind of robust in our process to make sure we're finding the right fits for our campus. And so recognizing that you've taken the time to write an essay, to share something about yourself, really reminds us that these decisions that are being made are going to have an impact on the decisions that you might make in where you're going to study. It also gives us an understanding into your writing ability. So I want to make sure that it's clear that this is not a writing test. You're not being graded on this essay. We're not expecting you to have, graduate level writing skills, but we do want to see that you have a foundation of writing ability that's going to make you successful on our college campus. Particularly places like liberal arts and sciences colleges, we require a lot of writing as a part of our curriculum. And so we want to see that you have that knowledge that's going to translate and be brought to our campus and really allow you to be successful in the classes on our campuses. So what role does the essay play for you? Again, it's going to allow you to kind of summarize various parts of your application. It's going to tie your story together. Perhaps there is something about you that you're really keen to share that you haven't been able to find ways to highlight in other parts of the application. This is a way for you to tell that story. Additionally, it's going to let us know what is most important to you in the collegiate experience. So recognizing that this is kind of an exciting opportunity for you to take the reins, for you to tell your story and really share something unique about yourself, I hope is something that you will use to build some excitement around the essay rather than make it a scary process. In terms of how you might tackle the essay, we do also want to give you some practical writing tips. Thinking about starting with some self-reflection, writing what you want to write and not what you think we want to hear. I think that this is a big pitfall that students make because oftentimes what you think we want to hear is what many other students think we want to hear. And so an opportunity to share a unique and personal story, that opportunity is taken away from you if you decide to write instead what you think we want to hear. We really want to get a sense of you, your priorities, your passions, the things that make you excited. Showing versus telling. We really want an opportunity to read your essay and see the experience through your eyes, hear it through your ears, and really feel that we are there with you. So making sure that you're showing growth in your in your essay, telling us the story with nice descriptive language is also really helpful. Using your voice, being authentic. I think a great way to ensure this is perhaps having a friend read your essay after you have drafted it, because your friends are going to be the best people to tell you, this doesn't sound like something you would write. And that feedback is really, really helpful in allowing you to make sure that natural authenticity and your natural voice is coming through. Remembering your audience, we are people too, reading your applications. And so being thoughtful about what it is that you feel comfortable sharing with us. Drafting your essay. The first essay that you write is very, very likely not going to be the one that you submit. So this is also really important when you're thinking about making sure you're writing that draft with enough time to then make edits, get feedback from friends, from family, before you are taking the time to submit that application. Supplemental essays are another thing that we want to note, and supplemental essays, we'll talk in a little bit more detail. Some colleges have them as a part of their application and some don't, but often the schools that do allow you the opportunity to write supplemental essays really want you to take advantage of that opportunity. want you to be thoughtful about the submission of those essays because supplemental essays are typically unique to that college or university. So one final slide, just as you're preparing to write an essay, taking a note of some of these items here. Does this essay show who I really am? Is it something that's important to me? Did I stick to the directions regarding length? So making sure if you're writing it perhaps in one environment on a Word document or on your laptop and then copying and pasting, if it has a word limit, you want to make sure that all the words that you wrote in that first environment, there are room for all of them to copy and paste into the application. Every year I find a few students whose essays were cut off at the bottom because they weren't aware of that word limit when they were initially drafting it. And so not all of it got moved into that space. So you really want to be thoughtful about that. Proofreading, again, we're not expecting perfection, but because we want to see that strength of your writing skills, making sure you're taking the time to proofread is really, really important. It also shows us not just that you can write, but it also shows us that you have an attention to detail that is always a plus and a bonus when we are looking at students to admit. A great way to proofread is to read it out loud. Reading it out loud is going to allow you to catch some of those really simple mistakes, or maybe you've left out a word or you've used an incorrect spelling of a word. I always recommend reading it out loud. And so again, does it sound like you? There's no greater accomplishment than writing an essay that's really authentically you and then getting that good news at the end of the application season and seeing that you've been admitted into a school that heard who you are, read who you are, and was excited to have you on their community. So with that, I'll transition now back to Anna.
So we mentioned quite briefly that there's a difference between an essay and a supplemental essay. Those might sound like the same. Remember, the essay is a general statement that you are sharing with any and all colleges and universities that you apply to. However, we may have specific supplemental questions. Usually you will find these right on the application, sometimes on the website after you apply. That give us the opportunity to hear from you directly, something that's unique about the college or university. Oftentimes, this can help us have confidence that you have real, genuine interest in our specific college or university, and also that you've taken the time to be reflective of yourself, your goals, your interests, and why you might be a great member of our community, and why we should admit you. Now, some of those optional supplements are written, but we also understand that for some people, writing is not necessarily their most comfortable, confident way of communicating, right? Something that's specific about them, particularly if you're writing in language that's your second or even third or fourth language that you speak. So for that reason, we're going to oftentimes offer different ways that you can communicate with us as well and say directly, uniquely to the institution, this is something you should know about me, and this is why you should really admit me to your college or universities. So supplemental essays could be an option, but oftentimes colleges or universities will also be happy to accept interviews. Interviews could be done either in person or they could be done virtually. And there are two main types of interviews that we want to talk about. The first is informational. If you see a college or university which offers informational interviews, this is really an opportunity to have a conversation with an admission officer, with a graduate, with a student who's trained for this purpose. And really all they're doing is helping you get more information, answering questions, having a conversation about what is unique about this college or university. But informational means it does not have any role to play in the admissions review. There is, however, the option sometimes for a college or university to offer evaluative interviews. This would be an interview in which some portion of it, usually a written summary of the interview, would be part of your application review. Now, two main options for evaluative interviews exist. One is with a staff member, so someone like Amanda or myself, or potentially with someone who's graduated from the college, or even a fourth-year student who's been trained for this purpose. And they'll have a conversation. They're not trying to trick you or anything. They're trying to learn a little bit more about your life story and what brings you to this college specifically. So there's no wrong answers. It's just questions about you. But if you might also have the opportunity to submit a pre-recorded interview, kind of through an external provider. I've listed here the two main ones that you may encounter. These would give you the opportunity to record, usually it's about a 15 or 20-minute interview where someone will ask you, again, questions about interests you have, goals you have, academic experiences that you might be interested in. And then you can send this video to a college or university to consider along with the application. So the only potential drawback or thing about this that is not as helpful is you don't have the opportunity to connect specifically with a member of the college or university individually. But on the other hand, they have the opportunity to see a video of you recorded answering questions in that way. So different types of interviews could be helpful. But there's other ways you can supplement your application. For instance, maybe you're a talented musician or an artist. Lots of colleges will give you the opportunity to share some of your art or music work, whether through video, through links, through image files. And you can share those with your application. And we might even be able to have the opportunity for faculty members to give us feedback and say, this is a very talented student on the flute. We would love to have the student as part of our orchestra, for instance. You also might have this opportunity for research or for athletic programs. You may also have the opportunity to submit a link to quite literally anything that exists on the internet that you think helps us understand more about you and what type of a community member would you be. Finally, we can supplement your application through meaningful interactions. Meaningful interactions means you've taken the time to communicate with our college and ask meaningful questions. So meaningful questions are not things like, what is the deadline? Or are you SAT optional? Because you can find that information on the website, right? But a meaningful interaction might be, I reviewed information about your biology program, but I would love to connect with a current student who's done a biology research project because I'm really interested in what that process is like. If you sent us a message like this, it shows that you're not only taking the time to reach out to us, but also to really think and be thoughtful about connections with our college and how this might show opportunities that you want to take advantage of when you enroll. So meaningful interactions is definitely also something that's important to consider. So hopefully this type of way of supplementing your application, I'm not sure actually, I think this might be Amanda. I think I'm probably waiting for Amanda again. Sorry, it's a little bit late here.
I'm happy to take this one, sure. So engagement with colleges, ways that you can engage with a college or university that you're interested in applying to in order to show that that is an institution that you really are interested in, I guess there's no better way to put it. So we have many different systems in place, and these systems allow us to track the ways in which you engage with us. So if you are receiving our emails, if you're tuning into a virtual event that we are hosting, perhaps we have the opportunity to come to your high school. All of these things are allow us to engage with you, and they also allow us to update our records so that we can continue to share with you the most relevant content. So every time you are signing up for something, you may have an opportunity to let us know what extracurricular activities you're interested in, or what academic programs you want to learn more about. And that allows us to share things that are going to help you in your decision making. Now, some schools also consider what we call demonstrated interest. And demonstrated interest is something that selective admission offices use in making their decisions, where the more demonstrated interest a student has made with their institution, that is going to give them an edge in their application process. And the reason for that is because colleges and universities want to admit as many students as they can that are really, really interested in them. And meaningful engagement is really important in demonstrated interest, because asking a question that says, do you have a psychology major? Now, you may have taken the time to find your admission officer's email address and email them with that question, but that's probably something that's really easily accessible on our website. It doesn't show a lot of depth of knowledge of our school, but perhaps you're emailing your admission officer to say, I've been exploring the website and I see that this particular professor is doing this type of research in the psychology department. And that might be something I'd really like to learn more about. I can envision myself working in their lab. Do you have a way that I might get in touch with that professor to learn more about that experience? That shows much more research. That shows that you've really gone above and beyond to learn something about our institution. And you're asking us a question that only we could offer that support with. It's not something that you could have likely found on your own through your own exploration of our website. So how does engagement and demonstrated interest help with fit? Well, it really works both ways. Again, it gives you the opportunity to learn more, to make sure that you're really educated in the decision you're making about where you want to attend college. But likewise, it gives us a sense of the students that are really, really committed to making our college and university their home. Now, I will say that the University of Richmond does not consider demonstrated interest in our selection process, but it's very much worth exploring individual colleges' websites, learning about whether or not they're tracking demonstrated interest, and if that plays a role in their decision-making. We also recognize that Japan is a very far away place compared to the United States and the East Coast, and it takes time to get to us. And while we would welcome you on our campuses, we also recognize that virtual engagement might be the best fit for you. And virtual engagement really is weighted just as heavily as in-person engagement, recognizing the distance and the time that it takes. And so if you have opportunities to engage with us virtually, know that that is still considered very, very meaningful to us. And we've reached the end now of our kind of high-level programming, and I'm going to turn it back to Anna so that we can share more about our individual institutions before we answer some questions.
Thank you. So a quick geography lesson. The United States is quite a large country. So you can see University of Richmond is located in Virginia. Hamilton College is located in New York. We just wanted to help envision that, just so you can see it's a large country. We're both coming to you from the East Coast. Now, a little bit about Hamilton College. Hamilton is, of course, a small liberal arts and sciences college. We have about 2,000 students on campus. It's a very safe campus environment, and everyone lives on campus for all 4 years. If you look at this photo, or the photo behind me, which is the same building, you might think, New York? That doesn't look like New York City to me. Hamilton is located in the center of the state of New York, not in New York City. If you look back on this map, we're right in the middle, right where the N is basically, and it makes it a full 4-hour drive to New York City from Hamilton campus. Also 4 hours to Boston, to Toronto, Canada, and Montreal, Canada as well, surrounded by mountains, rivers, trees, and valleys. Now, we are a little different from a traditional liberal arts and sciences college because we have an open curriculum, which means that while we offer 58 academic subject areas, every one of them is open to every student, and there are no compulsory classes. So it's kind of almost the opposite of a national curriculum in Japan, where everyone will take a very similar curriculum choice. At Hamilton, every class is open to every student, regardless of which curriculum you came from. Now, every student will choose majors. The most popular subject for students to focus on is economics. Number 2 is mathematics. Number 3 is world politics. But every program is open to every student, regardless of where they come from. We also do have very strong advising systems and a focus on internships, research, and fellowship opportunities. This includes a pretty unique program that we offer in New York City, Boston, and Washington, D.C. How this works is we send students to these cities every semester, every term, for 4 months, where they live in an apartment building with other Hamilton students, and they have a full-time internship during the day. So they work in a field of their choice for 4 months, and then they take classes in the evening with a Hamilton professor who's traveled with them to that location. This allows you to be a full-time student. You're not slowing down towards graduation, but you also get to spend 4 months living in a big US city location, which we provide the apartment for. You also have 4 months of work experience. And again, you don't slow down towards graduation. Hamilton this year was recognized as one of the top 15 colleges in the country for graduating our students on time, which is an important factor. Now we have some information here. I could keep talking for a long time, but I'm going to turn to my colleague who's going to talk about Richmond.
Wonderful. Thanks, Anna. So the University of Richmond, I mentioned earlier, is considered a big small school. We have 3,200 undergraduate students on our campus, and we are located in Richmond, Virginia, which is about 2 hours south of Washington, D.C. Richmond, Virginia is a capital city, but you can see we are not an urban campus. We are located about 10 kilometers outside of the city center in this very green, beautiful space. The University of Richmond was actually voted the #1 most beautiful college campus in the United States this year. So this is the second time in 3 years that it has been voted #1 most beautiful, and I think it is absolutely deserving of this title. There are a number of things that make the University of Richmond unique. The first is the programs that we offer. So we have 3 undergraduate schools. The first is the School of Arts and Sciences. Looks like a traditional liberal arts and sciences environment. We also have the Jepson School of Leadership Studies, which was the first of its kind in the United States and is a program that is driven in developing those soft skills. And then thirdly is the Robbins School of Business. And it is quite unusual to award business degrees at a liberal arts school. And so for that reason, business administration is our most popular major. Another important thing of note is our Richmond Guarantee, which is a promise that every single student will receive up to $5,000 US at least once to fund a summer research or internship opportunity. So this means there is no such thing as an unpaid internship because if a company or an organization won't pay you for your time, the university is going to pay you instead. So we are all about opening doors for students and allowing students to say yes to great opportunities that enhance their learning outside of the classroom. So with that, we have a brief slide here that shows our contact information. You are welcome to note this down as you are further exploring our colleges if you want to get in touch with us individually. But I know we have just shy of 15 minutes remaining and quite a number of questions to get through. All right, so I know we have some questions coming in the Q&A. Please continue to send those along. And we also had some questions that were submitted as a part of registration. Anna, do you want to kick us off with one of those questions?
Sure. We had some questions that EducationUSA shared with us that you had shared as part of the registration process. So maybe we'll answer one of those, then we'll answer 2 or 3 questions in the Q&A. So first question, how important do admission officers feel extracurricular activities are? We talked a little bit about this, but do you want to maybe add a little more, Amanda?
Sure. So extracurricular activities are absolutely important. And I mean that at a very high level. We want to see that you have been engaged in some way outside of the classroom, because that's what we'll expect from you on our campus, that you have that balance of dedication to your academics, but are also finding ways to build community and stay engaged. Now, what that extracurricular activity is a little bit less important to us. And what I mean by that is we're not looking for students with particular interests. I have many students that ask me, well, what should I do? And I asked them, well, what do you like to do? That's what you should be doing, and that's what you should be highlighting on your application. We are very fortunate to not have any kind of caps where we're looking for 10 students that are interested in music and 5 students that are interested in sports. Whatever it is that you are interested in, we want you to highlight that on your application.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice because, again, it tells us a little bit about your interests and your values. And at the end of the day, we want to get to know you. So that's really what we're looking for from that section. All right, so somebody asked a question and says, some colleges, when they have their supplemental questions, they ask about a very strange essay topic. Why do colleges ask a topic like that? Like the example they gave is, how do you eat this weird thing? And do you have any advice? Now, I think we can probably both speak a little bit about this. Oftentimes, if they ask you kind of a weird and quirky question, they're interested in seeing how do you think when things are different, right? So Amanda shared earlier the fact that you don't want to sound like everybody else, right? And so if you see a college that asks a quirky, interesting question, they're probably trying to let you know, we're going to ask you quirky, interesting questions. We want people who are creative thinkers. And this is an example to show with you an opportunity to be creative. Amanda, would you want to share to that?
Sure, I think that is spot on. As Anna mentioned, colleges and universities are usually very, very thoughtful about the essay prompts that they create because they are reflective of their college and university in some way. So if they're asking a creative question, knowing that it's going to be a creative environment. I also think there's probably something to be said about asking maybe a fun supplemental essay that you're probably not going to see from another college, knowing that you have to write something unique for that institution and you're not being able to kind of reuse an essay that you've already written. So that would probably also play into that idea of demonstrating your interest, that you're willing to take the time to write a uniquely crafted essay for that college.
Great point. Absolutely. Okay, we have a question. Does taking an IB curriculum add merit to college admissions? I think IB curriculum is a really great way it's a very challenging curriculum. So usually we are happy to see students in an IB diploma program. However, we do know not everybody has access towards that opportunity, right? So while we recognize how challenging the IB diploma is, and oftentimes we will also grant advanced standing credit for students who do the IB diploma, we do want to be sure that people who are not in the IB diploma know that we'll also be very happy to consider you as part of our process.
Absolutely.
We're going to try and move a little faster because you have a lot of questions, which is great. Is my English skill important to be interviewed?
Yes.
Probably.
So
Yeah.
I was going to say, in most cases, we're going to require an English proficiency test if English is not your first language. And I would say if you have concerns about what your English proficiency test might reveal about your skills, having an opportunity to do a supplemental interview to reinforce that your English skills are strong for admission, I would certainly invite you to go ahead and do that supplemental interview.
Yes, I agree. Okay, to prove my music talent, how many movies would I upload on my application? Should I include a movie with my face or body? So I would say for colleges that offer the opportunity for an arts or music portfolio, we will also have very clear instructions, right? So if you go on Hamilton's website, for instance, you look for art portfolio, you'll see the options that we have: film, music, acting, etc. And they'll give you examples of what we need. We'll ask you for a certain amount of opportunities. And really, we want to showcase different aspects to your talent. But we also don't want you to necessarily send us a 3-hour movie, right? Because that's going to be very long and hard for us to do for everyone. Okay, so a student has said, I have some awards I got on my exchange year in the States. These aren't directly related to my major. Should I still add them to the college?
I would say yes. We are certainly not looking for you just to highlight the the activities that are relevant to your major. We want to know what it is that you have spent time doing. And so please do be sure to highlight it. Also recognizing that there is a limit to how many activities you can list on the application, particularly if you're using something like Common Application. And so in that case, when you are limited, ranking them in order of importance to you is a really good strategy. So if you have 20 things that you've done and you only have 10 spaces, there may be something that you did while you were in the US or even home in Japan that you didn't find to be as meaningful to your growth, wasn't something that you were that excited about. And so that might be something you'd have to remove from the list in that case.
Good advice, I think. Okay, we have another question, which is a kind of complicated one. If I apply for scholarship need aware, does that impact the application acceptance and reduce chance of being admitted? So this is reflecting the fact that both of our colleges are some of the few in the US that meet 100% of the demonstrated financial need for every admitted student. This means if we offer you admission to our college, we are going to ensure you receive the financial support you need so it's affordable for you and your family. Most colleges that can offer this will take into consideration the level of funding that you need, right? So if you are a student who requires full scholarship, full funding, versus if you're a student who requires $10,000 of funding scholarship, this would be an aspect, one of many aspects in the application process. But if the college says they meet 100% of financial need, you should realize this means that if you are admitted to the college, we'll make sure it's affordable for you and your family, and that's a really important aspect. So there are only about 7 colleges in the US, I think it's exactly 7, and they are Ivy Leagues and almost Ivy Leagues, the most competitive colleges in the US that will meet 100% of financial need and not be need aware, meaning that they're considering how much funding you need access to. But you may find a lot of colleges such as Hamilton or Richmond that will both be happy to fully fund international students in the application process, but this would be one aspect in the holistic review. Okay, one says, what do you think about why some programs need to accomplish research work during undergraduate years? They want to know if there's a difference between workshop and research in classes. I think this is more like why would I want to do research as an undergraduate student? Would you want to talk a little about that, Amanda?
Sure. And apologies if I'm not fully understanding your question, but any type of hands-on experiential learning is really, really valuable to gaining deeper mastery of what it is that you're studying. And so, yes, there are certainly schools, certainly programs that require research in order to fulfill the requirements towards graduation. And I would say that these are positive experiences. We have many students on our campus that aren't required to complete research that opt into it. I would say likewise, if research is not something that you're interested in, things like internships are also really valuable experiences, study abroad. Anything that you can do outside of the classroom to gain that deeper understanding is certainly worth pursuing.
Absolutely. Now you have a student asking about GPA, and they're saying, how much do we value GPA in a process? And they've listed their GPA. Every student who's admitted is going to show that they have academically been successful and that they continue to be successful in our process. So if your GPA is lower, on the lower type of side, this is something to take into consideration because academics are going to be really, really important to us. So something to consider is what is the average academic result of this college. And if you have some lower academic results, then there are a lot of really great universities around the US that are less selective than Richmond and Hamilton.
I would add too that I just quickly wanted to add that we do, in most cases, publish a profile of our admitted students. So you can get a sense of how does my GPA compare to successful candidates at that school. And then I know we have one final question, which is if we as US colleges have a way of getting to know your high school and how competitive your high school is and what type of schooling and curriculum might be available. And the answer is yes, we do. Typically, high schools are submitting something called a school profile or a school report with your application, so we can get a sense of how you are performing within the context of that environment. And that is what we are using to drive our decisions. In the absence of that, in the absence of that information being submitted by your school directly, we have great partners in EducationUSA when we have questions about a particular school that perhaps we're not as familiar with. So we have many, many tools at our disposal to learn more about your school, because certainly, again, we don't want to be comparing you to students from other communities, other countries, recognizing that everybody's schooling environment is very different.
Now we have a couple more questions that were submitted in advance. In interest of timing, I'm going to try to just answer them pretty quickly, if that's okay. So one of them was, can you tell us about transfer admissions? This means I've enrolled at another university somewhere else, and now I wish to complete my degree at your college or university. They're saying, does this have the same materials, essay, extracurricular as first year? Answer, yes, very similar materials. The application will be formatted a little bit differently. You'll need to identify yourself as a transfer student, and the way that they'll phrase some of the questions will be slightly different, but you'll still need an essay, extracurricular activities, transcripts, this time transcripts from your university, as well as transcripts from your high school. Okay, when a U.S. college asks for 2 letters of recommendation, should I ask my high school teachers for both of the letters? Sometimes colleges will say this letter should be a counselor letter, this one should be from a science teacher, this one should be from a humanities teacher. If they give you instructions like that, try to follow the instructions. But sometimes you go to a school that does not have a counselor, right? If this is the case, not an issue. You can reach out to the college and explain you don't have a high school counselor. This is a very US concept to have a high school counselor, and you can choose a teacher who knows more about you in the classroom as well as outside of the classroom, and ask them to write the letter for you. So the colleges will be as specific as possible with who needs to write this letter. If for some reason you cannot meet that criteria, reach out to the admission officer, who you'll find their contact information on the website, explain the circumstances, and they can help you identify someone who can write a letter for you. Do you accept TOEIC scores? This is a type of English test. I will share, my college does not accept TOEIC scores. Some will. This is a research project you'll have to consider, but the most common English proficiency scores that we accept in the US, TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo English test. There are some other tests that some colleges will use. TOEIC is one of those, but you have to research and make sure your college will consider it. Our 2 institutions will not. Okay, and then one question that was asked in the Q&A. Look at us, 10:01 our time. So thank
you, Amanda and Anna, for great presentation. I think including EducationUSA advisor, we learned a lot. We had more like in-depth knowledge of what to write within the essay and what is important for the strong application. So thank you so much for staying up late and take time to do this presentation for us. So thank you everyone for joining the webinar. So this will conclude this webinar. So thank you again, Anna and Amanda.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone have a nice day.
In your applications.
Thank you.